On July 16, 2003, four friends went on a 3-day hike in the mountains of Montana. 72 hours later, one of them, Lauren Davis, 35 years old, was found dead in an abandoned forest cabin 3 miles off the trail. Her body was sitting in a chair in front of an antique mirror, her face covered in hardened wax that dripped down her neck. Around the chair were 7 broken mirrors, all pointing at the victim. On one of them was written in blood, "Look at yourself." The main suspect was the victim's husband, a well-known mirror collector, Maxwell Davis, who disappeared the day before the body was found. The summer of 2003 in the Bitterroot Mountains of western Montana was particularly hot. 4 women, all 35 years old, were preparing for their annual hike, which was supposed to be a break from the hustle and bustle of the city. Rebecca Milner, Catherine Walsh, Julia Hoffman, and Lauren Davis had been friends since college. Now they were all professionals. Rebecca worked as a pediatric nurse, Catherine as a school counselor, Julia as a software developer, and Lauren as an art curator specializing in antique mirrors and decorative objects. The Montana Weather Center predicted perfect weather conditions for the 3-day hike. At 8 o'clock, 17 minutes in the morning on July 16th, security cameras at the Devil's Canyon trailhead captured 4 women unloading their gear from a silver Toyota 4Runner SUV. Lauren's husband, Maxwell Davis, drove them to the trailhead. He can be seen on the recording hugging his wife before leaving at 8 hours and 46 minutes in the morning. This was the last confirmed sighting of Maxwell Davis for 72 hours. They were well prepared, Ranger James Turner, who checked the permits for the hike, later testified. They had detailed maps, a satellite phone, and good equipment. This was the 3rd time they had hiked this route in the last 5 years. The group's planned route covered 18 miles of moderately difficult terrain with 2 overnight campsites. According to Julia Hoffman's testimony, all 4 women stuck to the schedule for the first 6 hours of the hike. She documented the journey in detail with her Nikon D100 digital camera. The last image, with a timestamp of 15 hours and 42 minutes, shows Lauren standing by a distinctive rock formation, smiling, unaware of what would happen in the next few hours. The weather changed incredibly quickly, Catherine Walsh later recalled during her interrogation. Around 16 o'clock, a dense fog appeared, and visibility dropped to 10 feet. We decided to stop in a clearing and set up camp earlier than planned. According to Rebecca Milner's testimony, Lauren told the group that she wanted to take some photos for her upcoming exhibition while there was still enough light. At 17 hours, 04 minutes, she set out to scout just over that hill, promising to return in 30 minutes. That was the last time Lauren Davis was seen alive. When Lauren did not return at 17 hours, 45 minutes, the women began to worry. At 18 hours and 20 minutes, they began searching, splitting up, and checking in regularly. The search continued until dark. At 13 hours and 13 minutes, Julia activated an emergency satellite beacon, transmitting their location and a message about the missing tourist. The Ravalli County Rescue Service received the signal at 20 past 27, but due to severe weather conditions and darkness, they were unable to launch a search operation until dawn the next day. By that time, the 3 friends had already spent a sleepless night trying to find Lauren, creating an impromptu search log that would later become an important piece of evidence in the investigation. None of them could have predicted that 72 hours into their journey, they would find Lauren in a scene so gruesome that it would change their lives forever. A sudden change in the weather at 16 hours 30 minutes on July 17th forced the group to reconsider their plans. The National Meteorological Service archives confirmed that the atmospheric pressure dropped by 12 millibars in 30 minutes, resulting in dense fog and intermittent rainfall in the Bitterroot region. "We could see the fog creeping down the valley like a living thing," Rebecca Milner later testified. "It was moving unnaturally fast, swallowing up trees and rocks like a hungry monster. The temperature dropped at least 15 degrees Fahrenheit." According to Catherine Walsh, the group unanimously decided to stop at a clearing protected by a rocky outcropping and set up camp earlier than planned. While setting up camp, Lauren Davis announced her intention to scout the area over the hill to photograph wildflowers for her upcoming art installation. National Park rangers later confirmed that the area was indeed home to a rare species of mountain orchid that blooms for only a few days in July. Rebecca Milner recorded the time of Lauren's departure at 17 hours and 4 minutes. In her diary, later seized by investigators, she wrote, "Elle left to take pictures at 17:04. She promised to return in 30 minutes. The fog is getting thicker." The women agreed that Lauren would return within 30 minutes. When she did not show up at 17 hours and 45 minutes, Julia Hoffman began to call out to her periodically. There are audio recordings from Julia's phone that show her voice calling for Lauren and the eerie silence of the forest in response. At 8:20, as dusk began to gather and the weather deteriorated, the three women initiated a systematic search pattern away from the camp. According to Catherine Walsh's testimony, they split up, taking walkie-talkies to communicate, and agreed to return to the camp every 30 minutes to coordinate. "We searched a wider and wider area," Catherine explained during the interrogation. "First a quarter-mile radius, then half, then a mile. Visibility was terrible, less than 20 feet in the fog. We were screaming until we were hoarse." Records from the GPS trackers each woman was wearing showed that the search operation covered an area of about 2 square miles during the evening. At 9:55, Rebecca found Lauren's scarf hooked to a branch of a blackberry bush about half a mile from the camp in a northeasterly direction. It was the last evidence of Lauren's presence in the area. "When we found the scarf, the panic became real," Rebecca later recalled. "Up until that point, we were still hoping that Lauren was just lost and would soon find her way back. But the scarf was a gift from her husband. She wouldn't have left it behind." At 23 o'clock and 13 minutes, Julia Hoffman activated the emergency satellite beacon. The records of the rescue service operator show that the signal was received at 22:27. The Ravalli County Rescue Coordination Center immediately mobilized a team of 8 rescuers and 2 dog handlers. But due to the difficult terrain, bad weather conditions, and darkness, they were unable to reach the remote location until morning. "We received a report of a missing hiker and tried to get there as soon as possible," recalled Michael Brody, the head of the rescue operation. "But the roads were washed away, and the helicopter couldn't fly in those conditions. We kept in radio contact with the group, giving them instructions to continue their search." Throughout the night, the 3 friends continued to search, despite exhaustion and weather conditions. They documented their efforts in a makeshift journal that was later found by investigators. The entries became less and less legible as the night progressed, reflecting the women's growing fatigue and desperation. The last entry, made at 4:30 in the morning by Catherine, reads, "The fog is not clearing. The lights are getting weaker. Oh my God, where is she?" Investigators estimate that by dawn, the women had searched approximately 3 square miles of difficult terrain, moving in a radial pattern from the camp. Little did they know that the truth would be far more terrifying than they could have imagined. Ravalli County Search and Rescue Coordinator Thomas Brennan set up a command post at the Devil's Canyon trailhead at 5:12 in the morning on July 18th. The fog was dissipating slowly, leaving a damp shroud between the pines. According to the weather station, the temperature was 48 degrees Fahrenheit, with no precipitation, and visibility was gradually improving. An operation of this magnitude required careful coordination, Brennan later recalled in his report. We realized that time was working against us. A person who has spent a night in the mountains without equipment is at risk of hypothermia, even in summer. 17 volunteers, 4 canine teams, and 2 foresters began a coordinated search at first light. According to the search operation log, the area was divided into 9 sectors, each of which was systematically examined. Bloodhound dogs picked up Lauren's scent from her personal belongings left in the camp. 3 friends of the deceased, Rebecca Milner, Catherine Walsh, and Julia Hoffman, were exhausted after a sleepless night of searching. Paramedic Mark Peterson, who examined them at 7:30, noted signs of physical exhaustion and emotional stress. At 9:30, the 30 women were escorted back to the command center, where they provided detailed testimony and helped create a profile of Lauren. Physical characteristics, medical history, and psychological state. She was perfectly healthy, testified Rebecca Milner, a nurse by profession. No chronic illnesses, allergies, or phobias. Lauren was an experienced outdoors woman who had taken a wilderness survival course 2 years ago. Detective Michael Harris of the Missing Persons Unit joined the operation at 8:45. At his request, the cell phone provider provided Lauren's phone records. The records showed no activity after 16 hours and 52 minutes on July 17th. Her last text message to her husband read, "The mountains are magical today. Found the perfect place for my installation concept with mirrors." Authorities contacted Maxwell Davis at 10 hours and 17 minutes on July 18. According to the call record, he expressed due concern and immediately left for the command post, arriving at 12 hours and 3 minutes later. Officer Linda Ramirez, who first spoke to him, noted his pale appearance and trembling hands. "He looked stunned," she later testified. "He kept asking, 'How could this have happened? She's so careful.'" He answered questions in detail without deviating from the topic. Search operations expanded throughout Saturday and Sunday. A National Guard helicopter equipped with thermal imaging technology conducted reconnaissance flights every 3 hours. Aerial photographs taken at 13 hours and 22 minutes on July 18 showed a complex landscape: steep slopes, deep ravines, and dense forests. The natural conditions made the search difficult, even with the use of advanced technology. "Searching for a missing person in the wilderness is one of the most difficult tasks," commented Forester James Wilson. "It's like looking for a needle in a haystack, where the haystack is 200 square miles of virtually untouched forest." On Saturday evening, a meeting was held at the command center, attended by representatives of the police, Forest Service, and search coordinators. Maxwell Davis provided an update on Lauren's upcoming art installation, which was to use mirrors and reflections of light in the natural environment. On Sunday evening, July 19th, at 17:45, the search radius was expanded to include several abandoned buildings marked on forestry maps. According to Thomas Brennan's testimony, this recommendation came from Maxwell Davis, who insisted that his wife might be looking for interesting architectural elements for her work. At 19 hours and 32 minutes that same day, a volunteer search team led by former investigator David Morgan discovered fresh shoe tracks leading to an abandoned forester's hut located about 4 miles northeast of the women's camp. This location, decommissioned in 1987, was not on the recreational maps provided to tourists. The trail was barely visible because of the rains, Morgan later said. But the dogs reacted very clearly. That was the first real indication that we were on the right track, although none of us were prepared for what we would find in that hut. The group of 4 rescuers approached the abandoned building slowly and methodically. The hut, sandwiched between 2 massive pine trees, looked gloomy in the evening light. The windows were boarded up, but the door was unlocked. The first thing the team noticed were fresh scratches on the doorframe and muddy shoe prints on the doorstep. Dear viewers, if you like this documentary story, please subscribe to the channel, leave a comment, and like it. YouTube's algorithms analyze your interaction with videos, and your support will help us promote this content to more people. Thank you for your attention, and let's get back to our spooky story. At 8:27 in the morning on July 20th, exactly 72 hours after the start of the hike, the head of the search team, Michael Forrest, radioed in code 1054. A dead person may have been found. The atmosphere at the command center changed instantly. All conversation stopped, and the staff froze at the radios. The abandoned forester's hut was built in the 30s of the 20th century by the Civilian Conservation Corps, a simple 1-story structure with a stone fireplace and a small utility room. According to Forest Service records, the hut has not been used since 1987 due to budget cuts. The door was blocked from the inside by a wooden beam, forcing the searchers to enter through a window. The smell was the first thing that hit the nose, Forrest later testified. Specific, Swedish. Anyone who has worked crime scenes knows that smell. Forensic photographer Elaine Sutter arrived on the scene at 9:45 and documented the scene with 57 images that are now sealed as evidence. The photographs, partially released during the trial, show a gruesome picture that shocked even experienced investigators. Lauren Davis's body was positioned upright in a wooden chair, facing a large, elaborate mirror mounted on the north wall. Her body was covered in an antique lace fabric that was later determined to have come from the Davis residence. The most disturbing element was the crude candle wax mask on the victim's face, which had hardened into characteristic smudges down her neck and shoulders. The wax mask was applied with a certain level of skill, said forensic scientist Janet Wong in her report. It's not just molten wax poured over the face. Someone with some artistic skill created what looks like a post-mortem mask, retaining the victim's features, but giving them a distorted, inhuman appearance. 7 smaller mirrors of varying sizes were placed on the floor, each positioned to reflect the chair where Lauren was sitting. The detectives noted that the mirrors were antique, dating from the 19th century, in silver and bronze frames. One antique hand mirror contained the inscription, "Look at yourself," written in a substance that laboratory tests later confirmed to be human blood, AB negative, which matched Lauren's blood type. Officer Thomas Riley, the first officer on the scene, recalled, "When I walked into the cabin, I was struck by how neatly everything was laid out. There were no signs of a struggle, nothing overturned. Everything looked like a macabre theater, as if someone had carefully set the stage." The county medical examiner, Dr. Harriet Wilson, arrived at the scene at 10:42 and officially pronounced Lauren Davis dead. The preliminary examination showed that she had died approximately 50 hours ago, which puts the time of death at the morning of Saturday, July 18th. Body temperature, rigor mortis, and other markers indicate death between 2 and 6 o'clock in the morning on July 18th, Dr. Wilson said in her preliminary report. A more precise time will be determined after a full autopsy. Detectives examining the crime scene found several mysterious details. The remains of beeswax candles were scattered on the floor. On the walls of the hut, they found several symbols scratched with something sharp. It looked like geometric shapes, intertwined lines and circles. Investigators also found partially melted candles arranged around a chair in a specific geometric configuration. On a table in the corner of the room, they found Lauren's digital camera, a Nikon D100 with a memory card removed. Her cell phone with a dead battery was lying next to it. The victim's backpack was neatly folded under the table, with all of its contents in place, except for a bottle of water and an energy bar, which appeared to have been consumed. The strangest thing was the fact that the door was locked from the inside, commented Detective Michael Harris. It ruled out the possibility that someone had just left her there. Whoever did this had to have left the cabin through the window, the same way we got in. At 12 hours and 30 minutes on July 20th, Maxwell Davis visited the crime scene, accompanied by Detective Rodriguez. Witnesses described his reaction as shocked, but surprisingly restrained. He identified the lace fabric as a rare antique piece from their home collection, an item he had purchased for Lauren for their 10th wedding anniversary 5 years ago. Detective Sergeant Eric Lombard of the Montana Division of Criminal Investigation took over the case on Monday afternoon. A 15-year veteran of homicide investigations, he was known for his methodical approach and attention to detail. As he surveyed the crime scene, Lombard ordered a security perimeter to be extended to 100 yards around the cabin. The hut was processed over a period of 36 hours, he explained later at a press conference. Every square inch of surface was examined, photographed, and collected for evidence. In such isolated locations, the perpetrator often leaves more traces, feeling safe because of the distance from civilization. Forensic processing of the cabin revealed several critical pieces of evidence. Partial shoe prints consistent with size 11 hiking boots, candle residue identified as specialty beeswax candles sold in only 3 stores in Montana, and fibers consistent with individually tailored clothing. The candles were unusual, forensic expert Maria Rodriguez later testified. They were handmade with a specific composition of beeswax that contained lavender and sandalwood. Only a small workshop in Helena called Moonlight makes them. Meanwhile, attempts to locate Maxwell Davis were unsuccessful. His cell phone has been turned off since July 18th, and his credit cards have not been used. At 13 hours and 44 minutes on July 21st, police found his car, a silver Audi A6, in the employee parking lot of the Montana Museum of Decorative Arts, where Lauren worked. A security camera captured Maxwell entering the building on Saturday at 17:23, but none of the cameras recorded him leaving through the monitored door. That was a concern, recalled William Turner, the museum's head of security. We have 24 cameras covering all entrances and exits. It's impossible to leave the building without being caught on at least one of them, but he just disappeared. The search warrant for the Davis residence was executed on Tuesday, July 22nd, at 7:30 in the morning. Detective Lombard personally led a team of 8 officers and 3 forensic scientists. they discovered an impressive collection of antique mirrors, 73, in all displayed throughout the three-bedroom house. The collection was staggering in its value and variety, testified antiques expert Elizabeth Norton, who was invited to evaluate it. The mirrors dated from the 16th to the 19th centuries. Some were extremely rare. A 17th century Venetian mirror in a silver frame is estimated at least $300,000. Most impressive was Maxwell's study, which had been converted into what looked like a mirror restoration workshop. Police found specialized tools, silver restoration chemicals, samples of antique glass, and detailed drawings of various mirror frames. In a conversation with neighbors, investigators learned that Maxwell spent endless hours in this room, often working until dawn. The most disturbing discovery was the diary, said Detective Lombard, a leather book filled with Maxwell's notes dating back to the last 3 years. The diary, found in his desk, detailed the dates of purchase and what he called the reflectivity of various mirrors. The entries became more and more bizarre over time, moving from purely technical observations about the quality of the glass to speculations about alternative planes and portals opening through reflections. The last entry, dated July 7th, contained eerie words. The Venetian mirror responds when you approach it from the right perspective. I believe I am close to seeing beyond my own reflection. It was like the diary of a person slowly sinking into obsession, commented Dr. Patricia Lane, a forensic psychiatrist. The entries show a progressive detachment from reality and an increasing fixation on the mystical properties of mirrors. In the couple's bedroom, investigators found that one of the mirrors, an oval mirror with a gilded frame, had been removed from the wall. Behind it was a cache in the wall containing a folder with documents. Among them, a $500,000 life insurance policy on Lauren's life, issued last year, naming Maxwell as the beneficiary. Divorce papers signed by Lauren on July 6th, but not filed with the court, and a letter from the museum director announcing the approval of Lauren's exhibition, Reflections of the Soul, with a budget of $50,000. At 16 hours and 20 minutes on July 22, police issued a nationwide arrest warrant for Maxwell Davis on suspicion of first-degree murder. His picture appeared on all the major TV channels. But no one could have predicted how strange the case would turn out to be. Background investigation revealed that Maxwell Davis, 42 years old, had established himself as a respected antique dealer specializing in 17th and 18th century mirrors and reflective objects. After earning a degree in art history from the University of Chicago, he opened his own gallery in Missoula in 1997. Over time, he became a recognized expert, often invited to evaluate rare collections and museum exhibits. He was an encyclopedia of mirrors, said Jonathan Rice, curator of European decorative arts at the Montana Museum. Maxwell could determine the origin, age, and authenticity of a mirror at a glance. His publications have been cited in leading art history journals. His colleagues described him as extremely private but professionally polite. According to Martin Helm, the owner of a neighboring antique shop, Maxwell always kept his distance, even with people he had known for years. It felt like he was always hiding something. Financial records showed that his business had faltered in recent months. Bank statements obtained under a court order showed accumulated debt obligations of more than $450,000 to several international collectors. A transaction dated June 23rd attracted particular attention. A transfer of $280,000 to Italian antique dealer Paolo Ferrari for a Venetian mirror, 17th century silver frame. "The price was exorbitant, even for an object of such rarity," commented Elizabeth Norton. "It looked like a desperate attempt to acquire a specific object, regardless of the financial implications." Detectives gained access to Lauren's emails recovered from her computer. The correspondence revealed a growing concern about her husband's behavior. In a message to her friend Catherine, dated June 28, she wrote, "Max spends hours in front of that Venetian mirror he imported last month. When I ask him what he is looking for, he says he is learning to see right. I'm afraid the financial stress is affecting him." In another letter sent to her sister Rebecca on July 5th, Lauren was even more candid. "His obsession is beyond the pale. Last night I woke up at 3 a.m. and saw him standing in front of the mirror, whispering and making strange gestures. He didn't notice me, and I didn't dare to break his trance. It was the first time in our marriage that I felt real fear." Interviews with residents of neighboring houses brought disturbing revelations. Eleanor Shipman, who lived across the street, said she observed Maxwell on the evening of July 7th, the day before the hike, when he stood on his front lawn looking into a handheld mirror. When she said hello, he allegedly replied, "I'm practicing. Tomorrow I will finally see my soul in the reflection." "It sounded creepy," Shipman testified. "He spoke as if it was a perfectly normal conversation, but his eyes, they were empty, like he was looking right through me." Another neighbor, Richard McCormick, recalled seeing Maxwell that same night at 23 o'clock, loading something into his car. "It looked like large flat objects wrapped in cloth," McCormick said. "He made at least 3 trips from the house to the trunk. When I asked if he needed help, he flinched, as if he didn't expect anyone to see him." The 3 female hiking companions were interviewed further. None reported any unusual behavior from Lauren prior to her disappearance, although Rebecca noted that Lauren seemed preoccupied with finalizing details for an upcoming exhibition on reflective surfaces in contemporary art. "She was focused on her work, as she always was," Catherine Walsh recalled. "But now, looking back, I noticed that she rarely mentioned Maxwell during our trip. This was unusual, given that she usually spoke of him with admiration." Julia Hoffman added an important detail. "The evening before Lauren disappeared, I saw her looking at a photo of a strange mirror on her phone. When I asked her about it, she said, 'It's a Venetian mirror that Max thinks is a portal. I want to take a picture of a similar reflection tomorrow.'" On July 23rd, at 17 hours, 42 minutes, the police received an anonymous call. A male voice reported that a man who looked like Maxwell Davis had been seen near an abandoned cabin in the mountains 2 days before Lauren's disappearance. Detective Lombard ordered a re-examination of the area around the crime scene, focusing on finding evidence of the previous reconnaissance. On the 4th day of the investigation, July 24, 2003, the case took an unexpected turn. At 9 o'clock, 17 minutes in the morning, forensic technologist Jason Harper completed the recovery of deleted data from Lauren's phone. The results instantly changed the direction of the investigation. Sometimes the key to the solution lies not in what we see, but in what someone was trying to hide, Harper later explained in his testimony. Even professionally deleted data leaves digital fingerprints. A forensic analysis of Lauren's phone revealed deleted text messages between her and a number registered to Dr. Adrian Mercer, an art historian specializing in occult symbolism in European decorative arts. The messages indicated a professional relationship that had recently turned personal. Detective Lombard personally interviewed Dr. Mercer at 14 hours and 30 minutes on the same day. The 47-year-old professor at the University of Montana appeared at the police station accompanied by a lawyer. Thin, with a narrow graying beard, Mercer looked troubled, but answered questions clearly and in detail. "We met at a conference on European decorative arts in Boston last December," he testified. "Lauren was interested in my research on occult symbolism in Renaissance mirrors. Our communication was purely academic at first." Mercer confirmed that he advised Lauren on her upcoming exhibition. He also revealed that Lauren had expressed growing concern about Maxwell's obsession with a particular Venetian mirror allegedly made for Catherine de' Medici in the 16th century. According to Lauren, Maxwell had paid €470,000 for the object, well beyond their financial means, and was convinced that it had unusual properties. In the last message she sent me on July 15th, Lauren wrote, "He says the mirror shows him the way and that I should see it too. He insists on our trip to the mountains to find, as he puts it, a place of pure reflection. I am afraid, Adrian. I'm not afraid of Max. I'm afraid of the fact that he's become so detached from reality," Mercer was quoted as saying, showing the detective his phone screen. In parallel with this interrogation, the analysis of the trace evidence from the cabin yielded unexpected results. While initial suspicions focused on Maxwell, forensic technicians found microscopic fibers that matched a distinctive hand-woven scarf that belonged to Catherine Walsh, one of the 3 friends who went camping. The fibers were found on the chair where Lauren's body was sitting, as well as on the frame of the mirror with the blood writing on it, said forensic scientist Sarah Hendricks in the report. The pattern of the fabric was extremely specific, purple-gray wool with a characteristic hand-knit pattern. These scarves are custom-made by weavers in New Mexico. When Catherine Walsh was confronted with this evidence at 7 o'clock that afternoon, her demeanor changed dramatically. The woman who had previously demonstrated her full willingness to cooperate suddenly withdrew. She asked for legal representation and refused further interrogation. "It could have just been a coincidence," she said, before falling silent. "I gave Lauren my scarf at the first sleepover because she was cold. That's all I have to say without my lawyer present." A financial investigation conducted by FBI Special Agent in Charge David Ramirez revealed that Catherine Walsh was the beneficiary of a $250,000 life insurance policy on Lauren Davis's life, issued 5 years ago when the friends created mutual insurance policies at a time when all 4 worked for the same company. "The circumstances of the policies were unusual," Ramirez commented. "Usually the beneficiaries of such policies are spouses or close relatives, but all 4 women named each other as beneficiaries, bypassing spouses or family." Further investigation of Catherine's bank accounts revealed serious financial difficulties. She had accumulated debts of over $130,000, mostly due to online gambling. 3 of her credit cards had been closed for non-payment, and her home was in danger of foreclosure. At 25 on July 25th, detectives obtained a search warrant for Catherine Walsh's home. Among her personal belongings, they found a detailed diary containing disturbing entries about her growing envy of Lauren's professional success. The last entry, dated July 14th, contained the phrase, "This has to end. The mirrors will show the truth. She will see herself as she really is." On August 18, 2003, exactly 1 week after Lauren's body was discovered, the Montana Border Patrol found Maxwell Davis in a remote cabin 20 miles from the Canadian border. The officers were conducting a routine check of abandoned buildings in the area when they noticed faint smoke coming from the chimney of a structure that had been thought to be unoccupied for decades. "He looked like a ghost," Officer Jack Holloway later testified. "He was sitting in front of a mirror, half dehydrated, mumbling something about false reflections and lost portals. When we called his name, he looked at us as if he had never seen us before in his life." Maxwell was suffering from severe dehydration, had lost about 12 pounds of weight, and was in a state of psychological disorientation. During his initial interview at the hospital, where he was taken at 17 hours and 20 minutes, he claimed to have no memory of the day after he left the museum parking lot. A psychiatrist, Dr. Alan Freeman, diagnosed temporary dissociative amnesia caused by severe psychological shock. A search of the hut revealed a mysterious discovery: a missing Venetian mirror carefully wrapped in a protective cloth. The mirror was mounted on a makeshift wooden pedestal, positioned exactly to catch the first rays of the morning sun. Dozens of notes with incoherent entries, diagrams, and formulas were scattered around it. "The entries looked like crazy calculations," said forensic scientist Roger Taylor. "Mathematical formulas mixed with esoteric symbols. Something about angles of reflection, time cycles, and portals between worlds. The person who wrote it was in an extremely unstable psychological state." Forensic science provided the breakthrough needed to reconstruct the sequence of events. Fibers from Catherine's clothing were found embedded in the wax mask on Lauren's face. Furthermore, detailed analysis of the wax revealed microscopic fingerprints that matched Catherine's that could not have been seen during the initial examination. The most compelling piece of evidence was Catherine's cell phone, Detective Lombard explained at a press conference on August 22nd. She claimed to have lost it during the search. In fact, the phone was found in her home, carefully hidden in an old jacket pocket. GPS data from Catherine's phone, recovered by technicians, showed that she left the search area and headed directly to the abandoned hut in the morning hours of Saturday, July 18th. Her phone recorded her staying near the hut from 2 o'clock, 30 minutes to 5 o'clock, 10 minutes, the exact time when the medical examiner concluded that Lauren had died. On August 24, at 9 o'clock in the morning, Catherine Walsh was formally arrested on charges of first-degree murder. During a 6-hour interrogation conducted by FBI Special Agents Carla Jenkins and David Ramirez, Catherine finally confessed. The recording of the interrogation, partially released during the trial, reveals the cold-bloodedness and methodical manner in which the crime was planned. "It started as a joke," she said at the beginning of her confession. "Lauren always got everything she wanted. Art grants, exhibitions, recognition, everything I've been trying to get for years." Catherine detailed a meticulous plan developed over months, driven by financial desperation and envy of Lauren's successful career. While volunteering at the Forest Preserve 6 years ago, she secretly learned the location of all the abandoned structures in the planned hiking area. When the fog created an opportunity, she convinced Lauren to explore the hut with her, where she sedated her with a sedative poured into a water bottle. "I knew about Maxwell's collection," Catherine admitted. "For months I studied his obsession, his diaries. I borrowed the keys to the Davis house back in the winter, ostensibly to water the plants, but really to make casts. The elaborate staging with mirrors was designed specifically to incriminate Maxwell, whose eccentric behavior and obsession with reflective surfaces provided the perfect cover." Catherine carefully constructed a narrative that she believed would deflect suspicion away from herself. What was ominous was the fact that she planned it as a work of art, commented Dr. Freeman. The placement of the mirrors, the wax mask, the lace, everything was designed as a creepy installation. It turned the murder into a performance. In October 2003, Catherine Walsh was charged with first-degree murder. During the 19-day trial, the jury heard testimony from 52 witnesses and reviewed over 300 pieces of evidence. In a unanimous decision, she was found guilty and sentenced to life in prison without parole. Maxwell Davis, cleared of any wrongdoing but deeply traumatized, donated his entire collection of mirrors to the Montana Museum of Decorative Arts before moving to Europe. His remaining friends, Rebecca Milner and Julia Hoffman, established the Lauren Scholarship to support women in the decorative arts. The abandoned cabin was demolished by the Forest Service in 2004. Today, a small memorial marks the beginning of the trail where the four friends began their last journey together. It is engraved with an inscription: "Think about what really matters